What's up, everybody? How's it going? So, two things before we get into the guest description for this week's episode. Number one, we have new intro and outro music thanks to a music producer who goes by the name at Northern Sound. So, I know him from my hometown. He's a great guy. Check out his music. I'll leave some links in the description of the podcast on SoundCloud and the podcast on YouTube, so you can go check out some of his music. Number two, the reason that there wasn't that this episode wasn't yesterday was because of Thanksgiving. So, happy Thanksgiving to you and your family. Hopefully, if you go to university, you are able to come down, get some good food, see some relatives you might not have seen in a while. And so let's get into my guest for today. So who I have today with me is Graham Gerein. So Graham is a student at the University of Ottawa along with myself. He is a furious NDP voter and a former page with the House of Commons, which we kind of get into a little bit of what his job was like there. And what we kind of talk about today is a lot about the importance of having a political voice, the importance of having a system that best represents that political voice, and why the future in Canada is really geared towards young people politically, and how we can really make a huge difference in not just our lives, but in the lives of our children and our grandchildren if we become more politically involved and we kind of really take the future by the reins, so to speak. So, other than that, give it up for Graham Gerein. Okay, what's up, everybody? I got Graham Gerein here. I always get your last name wrong. I even trying to spell it. I find that it's just like it's just one of those names that's where's it from?
No idea. I seriously have
you have no idea. Oh man.
Yeah.
Okay, so for anyone that knows Graham is he embodies the term fiery ginger. His hair embodies the passion in his soul for talking about politics. So hopefully in this podcast, Graham will maintain himself. I want him to unleash, but I also want him to keep himself composed.
Yeah.
Composed is the big thing. So Graham, let's talk politics. The one thing everybody either doesn't want to talk about or
never shuts up about.
So exactly. Where did you start off in politics? Like, where did you become involved? What was like that first moment that you were just like, I really like this stuff?
Well, kind of a human interest story, I guess, almost as well. My very first foray into the whole thing, I was sitting on my grandmother's lap. I was 9 or 10 years old. And we were watching the Liberal Leadership Convention where they proceed to elect a new leader when the last one has lost or whatever, resigned. Anyway, she's a lifelong true blue Albertan conservative, and I was questioning her. I was like, well, who are those people? Who are these people? What are we watching, And she said, Graham, that one, and she pointed to this guy, Michael Ignatieff was his name. He's the least worst. And that moment, it was kind of weird. It was like, you know what? Why is he bad? Why was he the least worst? And it kind of piqued my curiosity. And then I went to Australia the next year, and then there was an election there, and I came back, and I had the bug. I don't know. It was bizarre as a little guy watching it. Yeah. But.
Shout out to powerful Michael Ignatieff. For those who don't know or are not following politics, he was the Liberal leader before Trudeau. Am I correct?
Yes. Yeah. Believe he was.
Yeah, right before Trudeau. So that goes to show you, for those that probably don't follow politics, how little known he was known when he ran in 2011. So it's been almost 2 years now since you were in the PAGE program. Well, since the beginning of it. So can you explain a little bit about what the PAGE program is and how, why did you want to be part of it?
Well, it's a nifty program offered by the Government of Canada, the House of Commons, Canada's Parliament, and they take 40 young people every year, first-year university students, and basically you're the bitch of Parliament, but you get to work alongside all of these decision makers, right? So you're serving them water, you know, you're answering telephones, you're handing out documents, you're quite literally embodying the bitch of Parliament term. But again, it really is something unique and special because you can only do it for a year.
Yeah.
You have to be bilingual.
Yeah.
And you are the only other group that is allowed on the floor with the politicians. That's it. Yeah. So it's you, the PM, the opposition leaders, and that's it. And you just watch Canada's democracy suck or rock on whatever given day it is.
And you make some connections too. Like you know a lot about maybe like the personal life is the wrong term, but a lot about the inner decisions that people make and people don't make. You learn a lot about their personalities of the members, and you learn which ones are nice, which ones aren't so nice. You learn which ones that you can trust, which ones you can't really trust. A little bit of that, and you make, I wouldn't say friends, but you make colleagues outside of this. So like were you familiar with any, like, did you know any MPs before you were in the PAGE program?
No, not really. I mean, as someone who's pretty engaged in the whole thing, right? You see the ministers on TV, or in the paper or whatever, but no, of course you don't know them. And part of the program is you got to memorize all these people's face and name, and it's crazy because at the end of it, there's just 338 scrappy, ambitious people trapped in a green room together trying to figure out how to run the country. So, you do get to know these people, and I would just say that the idea that all these politicians are somehow different or above us it really isn't the case. These are people at the end of the day. And when you mentioned just there the trust or the personality question, they're just as good or bad as you or me. They've all got flaws. They've all got advantages. Yeah. But they're nothing special. Yeah,
I think that's a really important thing to note, and note the fact that our parliament is being run by people just like us, and to not equate them above us, no. And because that gets into a huge political and philosophy discussion about the elevation of the king versus the elevation of having a republic and having an elected democracy with people that are meant to represent you because they are you. So that gets into a huge discussion, but it's a very important thing to note, I think, that just to recognize that these people are just like us and to not put them in positions where their decisions are the end all and be all.
Exactly.
Because they get things wrong all the time.
And that's the thing. I mean, you'd be sitting there at 8 p.m., 9, 10, 12 p.m., whatever, when they're debating an emergency, something came up. I don't know. They just had a debate on the Rohingya crisis in Myanmar. They were talking about Aboriginal suicide. So you're sitting down, it's 12 in the evening, you're exhausted, and then one of these idiots will crack a total lewd, not appropriate for the House of Commons joke. And everyone will burst out laughing, and it's all on the record, if it's caught on the mics. So really, I mean, they are just like us, and that's kind of reassuring because you see the PM on TV and you see all these people on TV, and you're like, oh my God, politics is so inaccessible. The thinking required and the running required, the effort. But it really it shouldn't be, and I don't think at the end of the day it is.
Now, you correct me if I'm wrong, but your riding is Calgary Heritage.
It is indeed.
And if you can remind the fair people out there, who was your member before
this new schmuck?
Yeah, before this new schmuck.
The new schmuck. His name is Bob Benson, the new schmuck. But previous representative was Stephen J. Harper, and I mean, I had no representation. That was full disclosure, people. I'm not your traditional Alberta conservative. I consider this. Lucas didn't mention this, but I'm a progressive, but I'm pragmatic. So that's how you can put that. But no, so Harper didn't get anything out of the previous prime minister's leadership, or couple of letters that we wrote, public action that we wanted to see fell on deaf ears. So,
So what I know it might be difficult just because like you're just a regular citizen and you weren't inexplicably involved with him, but like what was it like knowing that the prime minister who was running our country for a very like long number of years, almost a decade was he in?
It was nearly a decade.
Yeah, nearly a decade, and he was representing in air quotes your riding. What was that like when you would read things in the news blaming the prime minister for this decision or that decision, knowing that he had an office that was located in your riding?
To be honest, I felt no sympathy for the guy. He's the prime minister.
Yeah.
He owns every single one of those decisions.
Yeah.
That is on the record, that will live with his government for the rest of history. You know, of course, your services as a citizen of the riding and the prime minister's functions are very different.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the Harper Prime Minister's office, the PMO, where all the decisions are made, where everything was done, was the most controlling, oppressive, and generally dictatorial PMO. And I'm not saying this, subjectively.
Yeah.
There have been scholarly articles written on this.
Yeah.
It was the most closed-off shop that any head of government in Canada has ever seen.
Yeah.
And, the quality of our democracy was reflected in that. We had 4 elections with declining turnout.
Yeah.
We had, and I know we're going to talk about voter apathy, but so no, I don't, the being a citizen of the riding, being represented by the prime minister, no. I felt nothing special attached to that.
And specifically because you don't vote conservative, right? So you vote you vote a different way, so then that can increase that kind of lack of sympathy.
Well, yeah, I mean, so again, prefacing another discussion on electoral reform, but my vote, my first time ever vote in 2015. I expressed my opposition.
Yeah.
Good for me. I participated in the process. That's great, Graham. Well, I didn't get anything out of that because my entire province, save 4 or 5 seats, was blue. Mm-hmm. And, how the heck does that represent your average young person?
Yeah. So. Well, then let's get into it. Let's crack the barrel open. So, electoral reform.
Yes.
I would say it's more off of main discussions.
The
now.
radar, yes.
Yeah, it's off the radar now, but especially because it was one of the Liberals' campaign promises, electoral reform, and in the early days of their administration, it was on the table and it was being discussed by both New Democrats and Liberals. Conservatives, they had a
committee.
Whole process about it.
Oh yes,
yeah. So for those that are unaware, how can you what system of voting do we have now?
Right.
And what are some of the other options that we're looking at, and why are we looking at other options?
These are very big and important questions, and I'm glad you asked them because the simplest way to explain it is actually a beautiful comparison to the American system, because we all know the tragedy that is going on down there with our dear Republican president. But so Trump won, but he didn't win. Yeah. Hillary beat him by something like 3 or 4 million votes.
Yeah, in the popular
vote. But because Trump beat Hillary by a couple of votes in a certain amount of states, he gets to be the president.
Yeah, and
in Canada, that can actually happen as well. Now it's on a smaller level. So what happens is in your riding, in your district, say candidate A gets 30 votes, candidate B gets 29 votes, candidate C gets 28 votes. Super close election. Okay. A majority of your district has voted against candidate A.
Yeah.
But he gets to be your representative because he got the most. It's called a winner-take-all system. Mm-hmm. And right now, what's happened with the electoral reform question is the Liberals campaigned on getting rid of this system because it's not fair. Mm-hmm. Because you can have instances where a majority vote in opposition to a representative, and that minority gets to govern. Mm-hmm. So the Liberals campaigned against this. They spent $7-8 million of our tax dollars studying the issue.
Yeah.
They were going to institute a new way of voting.
Yeah.
Where the percentage of votes that you get is the percentage of power that you get in Parliament. That is the simplest way of explaining it. It's called a proportional system.
Yeah.
Everyone recommended it. The academics, the experts, Canadians turned out at their bloody consultations and told them, this is what we want. And the Liberals said, actually, we don't really feel like doing this anymore. We're going to scrap the whole thing.
I remember them, correct me if I get this quote wrong, but I remember them saying, because Canada now has a government that they like, we don't need to put electoral reform on the table.
Unbelievable, Lucas. This was, and fairness to the Prime Minister, his approval ratings are high.
Yeah.
But the level of arrogance and entitlement that displayed.
Yeah.
Well, now we've elected me, therefore me can do no wrong. And you Canadians, you don't know anything. You are best served with us Liberals. And we are going to scrap all of the good work that we invested, all of your dollars that we invested into this. That was the height of cynicism and the height of bad politics.
Well, like Trudeau right now, I would think since Trump has been elected and in comparison, his, like you said, his approval ratings are very high. But there will be a point whether it's he just keeps winning and winning and winning, and then he eventually gets to the age where he just can't do it anymore, or he's going to lose.
You betcha. It always happens.
And then this question of when the next election arises, we want a system that best represents what people want. And I think it's like you said, it's not good to think that because Canadians love what's going on now and enjoy our Prime Minister,
exactly,
whether for the right or wrong reasons, that's another discussion. But there will be a point where Canadians want to vote differently, and they should have a system that best reflects those changes.
Exactly. And
not a system that doesn't, and a system that benefits a minority as opposed to a majority.
Exactly.
So that's an important thing to note. So whether Trudeau wins a second term or a third term or whatever, like he keeps going and we got like another Mackenzie King on our hands. But there will be a point where
we want to turf the guy.
Yeah, where Trudeau will no longer be in power. And then at that point, we'll look back and we had an opportunity for electoral reform so much, even in coming elections, it will better represent how Canadians are feeling and how Canadians are voting. And that helps both the ruling party, but also other parties as well too, to see where they need to strengthen their base, or they need to, reach out to different communities and things like that. It benefits our democracy as opposed to just sticking with the same system that we've had. And this is a great shout out to Joe Rogan. This is a great quote. But when we used to write in feathers, we're keeping a system that we've had for
150 years.
150 years. 150 years when we used to write with feathers, and we're keeping that exact same thing, and we're not bothering to look at different ways of doing things.
And I might add, you kind of touched on this. We cannot discuss, we can discuss, but it is difficult to discuss any substantive issue that you care about deeply, whether it be the economy, the environment, Indigenous people, healthcare, educate, anything that you'd like to talk about, okay, stems from who has control of the government.
Yeah.
Okay. Everything comes back at the end of the day to the way that we put these people in office.
Yeah.
And right now, we have a situation where there are 100% power is owned by 39% of the voters, right? So we have Trudeau, who is unopposed, virtually unopposed, because he has a majority of the seats in the House of Commons.
Yeah.
So he can do whatever he wants. And he is governing with the support of 39% of the people. So, how in any world is that fair or good for the democratic process and for cynicism in this country? Like, how is that good?
And a lot, I don't want to put all Liberal supporters in a single camp, or all Conservative supporters when they had a majority. But the thing that comes up is, you guys are just sore losers because you lost, so you want the system to better reflect something else. But I don't think that it's so much as sore losers. It's just having a system that better represents what all Canadians are thinking is more intuitive to what we want our democracy to represent.
Exactly.
As opposed to having something that benefits a minority and creates these sore losers. Well, the sore losers happen because the system isn't fair, because they're upset. They're upset that they lost for a reason. And they see that reason as electoral reform. Whether that puts a different government into power will remain to be seen, because again, Canadians will have to vote for who they want. And if they choose to vote Liberal again, then that is their right. That is what they want to do. But you want a system that better represents how they're thinking. And if they are thinking Liberal, let them vote Liberal. If they are thinking something else, let them vote something else.
Perfect example. You and I both know many of our mutual friends here in Ottawa that have expressed a desire to vote for any of the other three big parties.
Yeah.
So not the Libs, not the New Democrats, not the Conservatives.
Yeah.
How many times have we heard, you know what, I'd consider voting Green. I would consider it. I'd love to vote Green. But what the hell is the point?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? That is the exact reflection of what you're talking about.
You get strategic voting as well, too, which, if for those that don't know, strategic voting is just voting for one of the other major political parties. So the two that we have are the Conservatives and the Liberals, who go back and forth between governing Canada and between and being in power. So strategic voting is voting for one of those two, as opposed to either the New Democrats, the Greens, whatever other political party, but just voting that way in order for your vote to have more count for the system. But that's ridiculous, because that vote doesn't properly align with what you think politically. You're just voting like that because the other option is so terrible.
So much worse.
And that's a huge problem that, again, going back to the States, a lot of people hated, whether for good reason or for bad reason, they hated both candidates.
Exactly.
They saw both candidates as incredibly flawed. They hated both options. Yeah. So they couldn't and their situation is even worse. Like, they have like the Libertarian Party run by Gary Johnson, and then the Greens run by Jill Stein. Yeah. So their situation is even worse, where they're like, those political parties barely get anything at all, even less than Canada. So having as many political options open and having a wide variety of parties to vote for and a wide variety of candidates to vote for is very important, and not just voting for either or, because those are the only ones that are going to be in power. Yeah, exactly. It drives me.
Oh, buddy.
Is there any discussion now in Parliament on electoral reform? Is there any rumblings?
Yes. No. The New Democratic Party, who was very invested in this issue because they are one of the parties that consistently get shafted by the system. Yeah. They've kept the issue alive. Very, very, very good MP by the name of Nathan Cullen, who is their critic on the issue. Mm-hmm. He is designated by the party to hold the government to account. Yeah. And he is continuing to maintain a social media presence on the issue. Yeah. He is continuing to engage other communities around the country, telling them what happened. Your government did this to screw you over. Because, again, not subjective. That actually happened, right? Yeah. It's not me saying it. That's everyone. Elizabeth May, the Green Party leader, exactly the same thing. She got appointed to the committee to study the damn issue. And the Liberals turned around and took that 444-page report and basically shelved it because they didn't like the results of her work. So, no, the issue is being kept alive. And I want to touch on this because this is the most exciting and pertinent example of electoral reform. British Columbia just got a new government. Yeah. The coalition between the New Democratic Party and the Green Party. And those guys have promised, and I actually believe them on this one, after what we saw with the Liberals. I believe that these guys are going to be the first example in Canada to actually get a referendum on whether we want to be a proportional country, votes equal seats, or whether we want to keep the status quo. And if that referendum goes through, which I think it might, then the Liberals are in shit for 2019, because that will be a concrete example of an issue that they promised, that some other guy delivered, and one-upped them on it and made them look like fools. Yeah. So
it's a good. That's. I hope it
does
along with you too. I hope that they keep it. I hope that they keep that promise and just see it work, because So what other countries have it? Like some European countries?
Pretty much. Okay, your question should be, who doesn't
Yeah.
have proportional representation? America,
Yeah.
Britain,
Mm-hmm.
Canada, and of the developed countries, that's it.
Yeah.
It is the Anglo-Saxons of the world who are attached to our dear traditions and our whatever else that haven't bothered to get off this. You know, the Norwegians, the Germans, the Australians in the Senate have proportional representation. The Israelis, right? In Germany right now, or before this recent election in Germany, the socialists were governing with the conservatives.
Yeah.
In a coalition.
That point right there is huge because it
huge.
forces political parties to work together.
And
so you don't have these stonewalling, especially that occurs in our government as well too. But a great example is the states as well too. Mm-hmm. When you have a Democratic president but a Republican controlled House and Senate, nothing gets done.
Nothing.
It's completely stonewalled. But in a proportional system, you force parties to work together. And I think, like, echoing to a huge societal point, is I think that forces people to get along.
Exactly.
Because you have to work together if you want anything to get done. You have to form coalitions in order for any government to be formed.
Politics is a reflection of people, right? Yeah. That's what it is at the end of the day. And if our political leaders can get along and do good, effective work for the country, in any of the forms, including a coalition, especially a coalition, then everybody wins.
Mm-hmm. Because like that's one of the best things about humanity is our ability to work together in groups to perform, I would say, miraculous things. Like we've done miraculous things, we've done horrible things together, but we've done incredible things as well. Yeah. And we should, that should be reflected in our democracy. We should work together with people that we wouldn't necessarily agree with ideologically, but because we want things to get done pragmatically, we need to work together. We need to unfortunately, take some concessions, give some things up, but push hard for some things that we want. And that way things actually get done, which is so important.
Jeez, Lucas sounds like a politician. Man. Listen to this,
well,
everybody.
No, it just drives me nuts that you see some of the things that don't happen. Like even in to keep harkening back to the States, our lovely neighbors who keep the news cycle constantly going. They can't even come together on a healthcare bill, which is great because I support Obamacare and I want it to continue.
Right,
so
of course.
I hope that the Republicans don't come up with anything, but they have control of both the House and the Senate, and they still can't come up with anything because of the infighting in their own party. You have a bunch of people who don't get along whatsoever, will not make concessions, will not work together to try to get something passed to benefit Americans. And they just say, well.
But I might add that America now is such a basket case. I mean, the comparison between the rest of the developed world and America is now more stark than ever. So I'm almost tempted to not even compare the dysfunction of the United States of America to anything that we experience here, because, I mean, I'm not a liberal voter normally. You know, I didn't vote for the prime minister in the last election, but I thank my lucky stars every day that I live in this country.
And it's not just not just a Republican problem either. Like the Democrats do it as well too. Like when Bush was president and they had control of the House. They do the same thing.
The Dems, it is both.
You can't see one as the saving grace and one as this evil thing. They both do the same thing. They both do this, and it just because you want democracy to work, you want to show that it works, and you want to show that we can, despite our differences, we can get along and we can make results. And absolutely. it doesn't happen in a system where you have with our first past the post system. It just doesn't happen in those scenarios.
Exactly. Rah.
Oh. Anyways, to move on from that, so the New Democrats just elected a new
brown guy,
the new leader, Jagmeet Singh. So they just put him in. So I would love to hear your thoughts.
He is brown. I'm not lying on that.
That's correct.
He's brown with the turban. In fact,
which is a huge hats off to him. It's a huge, like,
it is
a huge
freaking
accomplishment.
huge. It is. It's the first time in our entire history that we elected a visible minority to lead a major federal party. Yeah. And I might add that Mr. Singh speaks passable French. Yes. Above and beyond the fact that he's a visible minority, right? He learned the other official language of this country because he wanted to accede to higher office, right? Yeah. So kudos to him on that as well. Mm-hmm. He's lived through a lot of BS on the racist front, on the societal front. He was elected 4 or 5 years ago in Ontario as a New Democratic Party member there in Brampton. Got a promotion to become the deputy leader of that party. And then whenever this race started, I think it was last year, the federal New Democrats started their campaign to replace Mulcair. He tossed his hat into the ring. Yeah. And just this past week, cleaned up on the first ballot. Yeah,
majority.
It was a proper majority, unlike some of what other people win. 53% was what he got, but I did not support him. I don't support him.
Even still, you won't.
No, I don't feel that Mr. Singh is what the party needs.
Who did you support?
So I was more Mr. Caron, Guy Caron. He's a Quebecer. Mm-hmm. I feel that it's very important for the New Democratic Party to connect with Quebec. Yeah. Because it is the most progressive province in the entire country. Yeah. Socialized daycare, huge subsidies to education. They have the lowest tuition rates in the country. They have the most progressive income taxes in the country. They have the least inequality in the country. They're the best on the environment in the country. Yeah. Right? And Mr. Caron was a pretty good reflection of all of that coming from Quebec. So that's who I supported. Yeah. I feel that Mr. Singh is Mr. Trudeau. He's very stylish. He's very adept in the social media world. Yeah. He is very open and personable. He genuinely seems to give a shit, which Trudeau does as well. Yeah. But on the policy front, and this is my big thing, right? You can probably tell, for those of you listening, that I'm not really your normal 19-year-old. I mean, I'm still the guy that will go in and read all of the frickin' legislation and the paper and the news. I'm a news fiend, right? So for me, what matters is these ideas, right? Yeah. What is actually getting legislated
should matter to everyone.
Which should matter to everyone.
It should matter to everyone.
Get off Snapchat. So
you sound like an old grandpa.
I know I
there.
do, but I'm sorry.
Wow.
It just
you are right. Like especially for people that do vote, these policy decisions are what makes the leader the leader. It's not how personable they are, their personality, which is an important part.
Exactly.
And you want to put the best person forward to represent Canada as well too, because that is their job. Yeah. But you also want to make sure that the policy that they want to put in place is reflective of how you think.
Lucas, we've been run our entire history has been run by old white men. Yeah. Right? We've never had a other than Kim Campbell for a couple of months. Yeah. We've been old white men, right? Yeah. And yet look at how successful our country has been. Right? Our Charter of Rights, our official bilingualism, our highest quality of life in the world, the fact that we have never waged war on our own territory, the fact that we are, the beacons of free and democratic society in the world right now, of tolerance, of immigration. That's all ideas, right? That's not fluff. Yeah. And for me, where I saw that in the race for the New Democratic Party leadership was Mr. Caron. He was proposing to give every Canadian a check every month, unconditional money from your government because you are a Canadian citizen. It's a guaranteed income.
For universal basic income.
Universal basic income.
Yeah, you want to put a name to it.
Exactly. You get a check every month because you're a citizen, you're a tax-paying citizen, you're a hardworking citizen, and basically a well-designed GAI will eliminate poverty in the country and provide everyone a basic standard of living, and also for those libertarian, conservative, simple-minded people, not simple. That came out wrong. But people who don't generally trust the government.
There's the fiery.
People who generally don't trust the government. A GAI would simplify the bureaucracy, right?
Yeah.
So this was a win-win-win-win-win. This is what gravitated me towards Guy. And he was last place in the race. So I backed the loser, you know? But
that's okay. That's okay.
No,
and the
exactly.
thing is that you voted, which to harken back to
full disclosure.
Oh, you did not.
No, this is bad.
Uh-oh.
You
strategically voted?
No, I didn't vote.
Oh, you didn't vote.
My membership expired. I couldn't be bought.
Shame.
The race was not interesting to me.
Shame.
Yeah. Cynicism, people.
Shame.
But shame on me. You're right.
I think for Mr. Singh, I think what he best represents is because he connects with young people, and I think that can be a very important part for the new Democratic Party because they I would say, and again, I am no expert, so I might be completely wrong on this, but I would say that the majority of young Canadians who can vote, their support is behind Trudeau,
the Prime Minister.
Yeah, right now, and but I think with Jagmeet, especially because of the fact that he's a visible minority, it helps bring in those young people who want to see more inclusive, more equal Canadian society. And you would hope, again, that you want the policy to reflect his wider appearance to the Canadian public. So we hope that comes along with it as well too. But I think he can do good. I think he can do good in bringing a young base to the new new Democratic Party.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And bringing in more people into the political spectrum. I think that that video of him, that unfortunate video that went viral, the heckling that he experienced. For those that don't know, just Google it. It'll be everywhere. You might have seen some things on Facebook or whatever. But that video was huge because it showed how a calm, well-mannered individual handled a complete racist.
Yep.
And his tagline, how he handled it, was with love and courage.
Exactly.
Which is a huge thing for people to see. The fact that he was so calm, didn't just ask her to be thrown out. Yep. Very well mannered. That was a big thing for me seeing that, and I think his popularity from that video rose because they saw what a well mannered individual for the New Democrats could look like.
Oh, I trust that he's going to do really well with young people. I turnout in the last election, the amount of people that got off their asses and went to vote went up something like 6%, which is huge. Mm-hmm. It was the highest it's ever been in 20 years, and that was the Trudeau effect. Yeah. So now you've got a situation where the average age of the three-party leaders is like 40. Yeah. The youngest we've ever had, right? Mm-hmm. And by the time the election rolls around, they're going to be 42. We're going to be 22 or whatever, right? Yeah. These are young people that want to be the top guy in the country. And we, millennials, are now, and this is why this conversation is particularly important, it came out a couple of years ago that millennials, as of, I think it was 2015 or 2016, now form the biggest single voting bloc in the entire country. Yeah. So we outnumber our parents' generation. We definitely outnumber the seniors. Yeah. Between the ages of 18 and 34, that's us. And now we get to set the goddamn agenda because we've watched our parents. We've become a successful country. I'm not denying that. But it's now time for us to get off of our asses. I say it again because there are issues that need to be talked about. And there are specific issues to our generation that are going to have to be addressed. Yeah. Notably climate change. Yeah. Notably access to education. Yeah. So it now is the time, people.
Well, that's a great segue to our other thing because I want to talk about voter apathy. So for a lot of people who may be listening to this, they may give a smallest of shits about what goes on. They don't vote. They don't keep up. They don't keep up with what's going on in Parliament, what's going on in Canadian politics, Canadian business, other things of that sort. They might not know, and besides Trudeau, They might not know any of the names we're talking about. They might be unfamiliar
Exactly.
with Mr. Singh. They may not know the Conservative leader, Mr. Scheer, Andrew Scheer. And they're apathetic. That's the word, voter apathy. They're apathetic to the political process. And I know a lot of my friends who don't vote. And I always encourage them to go out and vote, to take some time out of their day, do a quick research. All the political opinions and ideologies are available online. You can look up which most closely aligns to yours. I think there's even some tests that you can do. Like you can they give you some questions. You rate 1 to 5, which you very agree, very much disagree, and then you can see from there, just from this little test, whose opinions most closely align with yours. But people don't, for a variety of reasons, which we'll get into, people don't seem to care. So why do you think that is? Why do you think voter apathy is such a huge... It like you said, it went up in this past... our voter turnout went up in this past election, which was great. Very good to see more people come out to vote. But in the 2011 election, what was the voter turnout?
62, 61. So
that's
you're abysmal.
Yeah, you're missing 48% of the Canadian population, of the Canadian voting population, not voting, and that can change
everything.
Everything.
The course of history.
Yeah, it can change everything, and people don't vote. So what do you think are the main reasons for voter apathy or for low voter turnout?
Well, several. I mean, first of all, and we've all heard this one before, all politicians are the same because all politicians cannot be trusted. Yeah. Now, I've had a little bit of experience with the politicians now, and governing is fucking hard. Yeah. It's a hard, miserable job. Yeah. That should not disenfranchise you to go out and run for something, because it's very important, but these people are subject to public scrutiny. They've got to balance political considerations with policy considerations. They've got to balance national and even regional differences of opinion. Ontario is not Alberta, is not the North, is not the United States, right? Everyone's got a vested interest in something or other. And they've got to wrap it up in an image that is presentable and palatable to as many Canadians as possible. And they've got to do that every fucking day of their life. Yeah. So it's a hard job. So to expect your politician to follow through on every single one of his or her promises, unfortunately, I hate to say this, people, is naive, because they're not going to. Yeah. Now, when they break key campaign promises, when you were expecting a total political or policy change, and that was made clear over and over and over again in an election, that's another story. Yeah. And we see that recently, not just Trudeau, Harper, Martin, Chrétien, and the last principled politician, I would argue, and even he broke promises, right? But this was Pierre Trudeau Jr.'s father, right? He gave the middle finger to my province of Alberta because he didn't care about the West. Yeah. But he made that very crystal clear to everyone. He made it very crystal clear that we're going to have a bilingual country, God damn it. He made it crystal clear we're going to have rights, right? So, sorry, I'm getting off topic. No. But voter apathy, okay. Number one, broken promises. Yeah. Number two, we're going to come back to the system, but it is the system. It's the fact that my vote doesn't feel like it's going anywhere. Yeah. I alluded to it earlier. I'm a young person. There's a lot of people like me back home who are principled but progressive. Yeah. And have zero elected officials to go and speak their voice in any provincial or federal legislature because of the way that winners can win with 30, 25, 20% of the vote, right? So that has to be said. Number three, I would just say that people feel overwhelmed with politics. Information overload is so huge now
And not just on the political front, but on social media,
Yeah.
in the news, within fashion or food or whatever part of society, friendships or technology, anything. We have got more access to information that we have ever had in our entire history as a species. And the same goes for politics. And when people are confronted with this, they acknowledge the fact that it's a big decision. But I really do think that a lot of people just go, holy shit, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'm confused, or something is not accessible to me, and therefore I will just sit on the sidelines.
And finding the information to trust, I think too, is huge
in our 2017.
In our day of
fake news.
Fake
news,
in our
buddy.
age of fake news,
Yeah.
it's hard
Crazy.
to know what sources that you can go to, which will be reliable.
Yeah.
And which you know are unbiased and will provide you with simply the facts.
Exactly.
And
It's impossible.
yeah. And to sift fact from fiction is work. Like that, that's a job, and that contains a lot of effort. And for those who are not inclined to put in that effort, it's like you said, they become overwhelmed with trying to find something.
And I might add to that,
Yeah.
fact from fiction is already difficult.
Yeah.
The politicians don't help that cause.
Yeah.
Because they're in the business of selling you a product.
Yeah, they
Right?
spin everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They want you to buy in.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to take their version of the facts.
Yeah.
Or they're not even going to use facts in
Yeah.
the case of some conservatives in Canada and some Republicans in the United States. They're not even going to use the facts. They're just going to spout whatever crap comes out of their mouth.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a powerful, simple, repeated message.
Mm-hmm.
And boom, look what happens. You get Donald. You get,
Yeah.
you get crazy people in positions of power that really shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think we were talking about apathy, but
Yeah.
it's okay. So, yeah.
It's daunting. It's daunting to find, because I consider myself, I consider myself progressive, but how can I best word this? There is not one political party that best aligns best represents my views all of the time. Mm-hmm. Because like any other normal human being, my views change when new information comes out.
Yeah.
There are some things that some part of a party may agree with that I agree with, but then another party supports something that I agree with as well too, which pulls my support in a variety of directions. And it's difficult, and a lot of people, and again, that becomes a huge problem when say, well, you need to pick one.
Exactly.
You need to pick.
You get one.
You get one vote, and it's for one candidate that's on the thing. And if you don't like any of the candidates, well, then what are you going to do?
Tough shit. Yeah.
What are you? Who will you vote for? And then I think that comes in where it's appropriate to vote for who best aligns. And that's the thing, is who best aligns with your views. They may not align with all of your views, but they may agree with you on things that you deem very important.
Yeah.
So, for example, climate change is a huge thing. If you think climate change is the most pressing issue of our time, you are more likely to vote for a candidate who is very, very hard on climate change. Mm-hmm. And they're saying, listen, this is exactly what we're going to do. We're going to get off coal completely. We're going to convert all this to green energy. And if that's the most important issue, but there's some other things that's on their platform that you disagree with, you have to swallow the pill. You have to. It sucks.
It's a part of life.
It sucks. You have to swallow. But then again, that comes up to our earlier discussion about making concessions.
Yep.
And about working with people who you may not agree with completely, but who you agree with on clear issues, and that you know that you can accomplish something together, is very powerful and very intuitive of democracy.
I can't remember who said it. It was some public figure, but I wish I could remember. But the good quote that I keep with me is, "Politics is the art of the possible, not the impossible." Mm-hmm. And that quote should symbolize what we hope to do as a society. Mm-hmm. Because it really is, at the end of the day, about finding that consensus. Yeah. And you as a voter, are perfectly entitled to disagree with even the party that you voted for. You know, that's in fact, that's encouraged. That shows that you're critical of the people that you supported. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Right? But when people are just talking past each other, you know, nothing gets done.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think another huge issue in our country, specifically because it is so large, is the difference of opinions in provinces as well too. So you are from lovely, lovely Alberta.
Yes,
Shout out
indeed.
to great province of Alberta.
Yes.
I am from lovely, lovely
Toronto.
Southwestern Ontario.
Yes.
Just an hour outside of Toronto. So what I vote and what my parents vote
probably
and
different.
what the majority of the people who live where I'm from vote, it can be very different from where you vote, because you live in Calgary, so you live in a city. Most cities vote progressively, as opposed to where I live, which is a suburb, which tends to flip-flop. And a lot of the times the suburbs are deemed as controlling, like they're the key battlegrounds. You know, we don't have battleground states like the United States. But we have key ridings.
Swing ridings,
and a lot of those times are
GTA suburbs.
Our suburbs. And it's interesting. I know we looked this up. This was last year, but whoever like the riding that I'm come from votes for is who goes into power, and I think it's been like that for nearly 30 years.
So this is one of my favorite topics, because I'll give you a little overview of why I think Alberta is the way it is. So to preface all this, Calgary, where I'm from, is, in terms of per capita income, the wealthiest in the country by a mile. It's had the fastest growth in the country by a mile. It's also home to Alberta's petrochemical and oil service companies.
Shout out to the powerful oil and gas companies.
It is big oil, people, and you know, it's a corporate town. The extractivist industries generally are not sympathetic to the causes of environmental degradation or economic justice or you know, these things. And Calgary for a long time, and I think Alberta in general, felt pissed on by Central and Eastern Canada because they were doing good work. These are educated people. These are kind, nice Canadians that, just like you and me, happen to be in some industry, right? They work in oil. And they felt vilified for a long time because the election would already be decided before the results even came in, because Toronto is bigger than my entire province. Right? So Cambridge, Brampton, Oakville, you know, Scarborough, Toronto, Hamilton, they get to set the national agenda. And Calgarians and Albertans and Westerners in general, even the 4 Western provinces, felt that this was BS. So a part of the reason why you see this reaction is because we really didn't have control over any of the country for a long time. And then Harper won. He was the first real Western prime minister ever. And we rewarded him. I mean, 2011, there was everything but 2 seats or 3 seats.
Wow.
Like, that's every part of the province is blue. And this time around, it was only 4 or 5 were Liberal or New Democrat, and 30
still very impressive.
30 others were Conservative. So the regions in Canada are so different, and one of the things that I hate is the fact that Canada is so big that we don't get to know our own country.
No, I've never, besides like little family trips to Quebec. I've never been outside of this time zone. I've never been to Manitoba. I've never been to Alberta. I've never been to Saskatchewan. I've never been to British Columbia. Never even dreamed of going to any of the Northwest Territories. Never been anything past Quebec City. I've never been. I've never seen where anybody else lives and encountered their life. And I think that's a huge part to why, like, the centrality of the GTA and Ontario in general,
and Montreal,
and Montreal, that little corridor,
that whole corridor,
that's right, nice and close to the United States, is very, very different from the rest of
The country.
Canada. Despite the fact that it's such a small area when you think about size, but so many people
60
live there.
some percent.
So many people
Exactly.
compared to the rest of the country.
So, and then then you throw in the little Quebec factor, which is their own world. They tried to separate twice. They've still voted for provincial governments that are separatist in the past.
Yeah.
But then, Quebecers are generally the most, like I said earlier in the podcast, they're generally the most progressive people in the entire country. So could you imagine when Harper ripped up refugee health benefits?
Yeah.
Could you imagine how Quebec felt on that one? Or when Harper repealed environmental legislation protecting oceans and waterways in the budget?
Yeah.
Two completely separate issues. Do you think Quebec was really happy with that?
No.
Of course they weren't.
No.
But, British Columbia, Alberta, where all the industry is, up north, Fort Mac, they probably saw it differently. They probably saw it, these are just barriers to my development. These are unnecessary, blocks to my continued prosperity. And, look at the results. Alberta... They did a comparison between all the provinces, and Alberta's got the same quality of life as the Swiss, who are, as we know, loaded, and they're the happiest, healthiest people on the entire planet, right?
Yeah.
Alberta's like that, but because of this dirty money that we have.
Yeah.
It paid for my health. It paid for my education.
Yeah.
How crazy is that? So...
And that's like as we like just focusing on environmental, like as we hopefully get off of fossil fuels and move on to cleaner sources of energy, that becomes a huge debate, right? Some people I'm sure there are many conservative voters who don't believe in climate change.
Yeah.
There might even be some conservative MPs or that don't believe in climate change.
That's astonishing.
Which is crazy to think about, especially in Canada, where we just like those crazy Republicans down there. They don't even believe in climate change, but it's happening here. There are a lot of people, and I shouldn't just blame Alberta, because I'm sure there are people all across Canada.
Oh yes.
That don't believe in climate change, especially if their job relies on that money. They don't like no one wants to be fired. No one wants to say that your job is destroying the earth. Meanwhile, I'm just trying to, like every other Canadian,
support my family.
I'm just trying to support my family. I'm just trying to have a good life. I'm trying to take a vacation every year. Yeah. This is a good job, gives me good benefits, helps put my kids in school, just like any other Canadian.
Exactly.
They're not like to vilify people, I think, that work in this industry. Maybe the higher ups and some of their decisions, but the average worker is not some sort of evil money grubber who just bathes in oil.
Yeah.
They're just regular people that just have a regular job, just like everybody else, and that job helps them build a family, helps them pay taxes. That contribute to
equalization. I should say that as Albertan.
Which is a huge point. So can you explain what equalization is for people that don't know?
Well, Canada's last bastion of communism is the fact that we basically, rich provinces send money, or not directly send money. There's a complicated formula to reallocating these funds, but in simple terms, wealthier provinces direct some of their funds, because the federal government compels them to, through law, 150 years ago when Canada was set up, to the poorer provinces, so that all of our social security nets are broadly similar. Yeah. So basically what that means is health, education, even infrastructure, for the wealthier provinces, that's a part of being Canadian. Well, you want to be in this country, you're going to believe in this country, and you're going to help those in other parts of this country that don't have 170 billion barrels of crude under their feet. Yeah. So another little factor there. Albertans have never, in the last 50 years, been a receiver of equalization payments from the federal government. And Quebec has. The Maritimes have. Ontario, who never did, started receiving a couple of years ago, and that really pissed off people because
this province here is supposed to be the driver of the entire country's economy, right? So that was even more infuriating. But I think that is a beautiful part and a vital part of what it means to be Canadian, because
and what it means to be in a confederacy.
Exactly. What we do is make sure that our own people get by and hopefully thrive. Because when you've got a province like New Brunswick or Nova Scotia, where the average age is 10 years older than it is in Alberta, there are less people working because there are more retirees, so less taxes are paid, so the government has less money to offer for services.
And a population dearth. There's so many people leaving there.
Exactly.
Nobody wants to stay.
There's no jobs, so there's less tax revenue again.
Yeah.
So all of the senior citizens that are still there, all of these problems knock on, right?
Yeah.
There's always some other unintended consequence. Yeah. And that is a fundamental part of what it means to be Canadian. It means helping someone when they are down and out, and it doesn't mean pitting one region against the other. And Albertans felt, and Westerners in general felt, that for pretty much our entire history, it was them in the Quebec, Montreal, Windsor, Toronto corridor versus us.
Yeah.
So that's a simple explanation of, some of our history, but it's super important. And if we understand ourselves better, then the country gets better. So for me, it's bilingualism. That's my little cause. That's
which I am not. I am not at all.
Shame.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's another thing. In my, like, where I live, there is one private French immersion school.
Yeah.
Like in my my years of primary and secondary education, I learned core French from grade 4, I believe I began, all the way up until I took it all the way up until grade 12, but it's only required until grade 9. After grade 9, you can stop, and a lot of people do.
Of course.
So a lot of people hate it.
Yep.
A lot of, especially if they're not good at it or they don't like it,
Yep.
they don't take it, and it isn't a requirement for jobs down there. No one cares if you can speak French.
Yep.
Like it might be a nice little plus on you. Oh, well, he speaks French, but it's not like here a requirement for nearly every single, especially every single public sector job.
Yeah.
You have to be bilingual. You have to. It's a requirement. And I have an aunt here who lives in Canada, and her kids go to French immersion school, and they learn French. Her husband, my uncle, he had to learn French. He didn't know it. He was from the same town that I was, and they made him learn French, and it was hard, especially because like of his age. It's a lot harder to learn a language when you're older. But
for me, we don't need to belabor this point forever because that's something that's particularly close to my heart. But I will say this: not the only reason, but I could not have had the opportunities I've had in my life were it not for the fact that I learned the other language of the country.
Yeah.
I would not have worked in Ottawa, so I would not got the Page job.
Yeah.
Which then, I wouldn't have been able to work for my professor here at the university because I wouldn't have been able to converse with her in French.
Yeah.
Which therefore wouldn't have meant that I wouldn't have got the reference for the next thing and the connection to the next thing, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, we think of it in isolation as this burden.
Yeah.
But you never know when you're going to need it. And trust me, people listening, you should consider learning a little more about Canada. Yeah. That's hopefully what we've
No, I would if the opportunity so arises where I can put my kids in French immersion, I want to put them in French immersion schools. I want them to learn French. I want them to be able to speak both, because they're our official language.
Yes.
It's an official language.
Yeah.
It's not just some other language that is commonly spoken.
Yeah, get over it, people.
But it is official.
Yeah.
It is an official language. And to be able to speak English is great. A lot of people speak English in the world.
Yeah.
But to be able to speak French is a skill that I always wish that I had. I can survive. Like if you were to plot me down in Quebec for 2 hours.
Yeah.
I think I could survive.
Yeah.
I think I could survive. I could understand. The most important thing is I could understand what people are saying.
Yes.
I may not be able to respond back in complete sentences at all, but I can understand. I can survive. Which
Where is the bar?
yeah, I can.
Where is the insert place here? Yeah.
I can, like I can survive. But besides that, I
Yeah.
am of no use. I am of little to
Yes.
no use at all of speaking speaking French, of surviving. Which again, like you know, just as people do, like you look up like some of the jobs in your area, some like volunteer positions that are offered, and most of them, it's written right there. Bilingualism is a requirement. Bilingualism essential.
Yeah.
And it sucks because like there are jobs, like there are volunteer positions at the university that I would love to do, but I can't because I'm not. Which, you know, but
Tough shit.
yeah, it is like I don't blame my parents.
No, of course
I
not.
don't.
You can't.
I don't blame my parents because it's not like it's not up to them to just he must learn because I'm pretty sure when my parents even came here, bilingualism wasn't even official
policy.
It wasn't even official policy.
Oh God, I don't know, 69, and then it took them a long time to do it, right?
Yeah.
Of course.
Oh yeah.
Get it implemented to get all the bureaucrats learning it here. So.
But okay, so the final thing that I just want to end on is what has politics meant for you, and do you fear that as you get older that you will become disgruntled with politics in general, and that you will become not one of the people that you hate, but one of the people that is different from you and saying that I don't vote anymore because it doesn't do anything? Do you fear that you will ever become like that?
Never. I'm too invested in this shit. For people who know me, I care. I really do care. I have respect for the process. I have respect for what these people do. But the future of politics, and by extension the future of the country, is always in question. That's just the nature of the business.
Yeah.
And, you know, when we take stuff for granted, oh, well, some people will vote, therefore we will always have a sane prime minister, right? Well, look what happened in the States. Look what happened in Austria with their leader. Look what happened in Germany. The Germans just elected some crazies to their Bundestag, their parliament. They just put some neo-Nazis in there, right? When democracy is hijacked, the French as well, when democracy is hijacked, then, you know, everyone suffers.
Yeah.
The institutions suffer, the people suffer, the country's not as well run, the country isn't as unified.
Yeah.
And it's really sad because politics can be so much more than that. Mm-hmm. And for all of those people who are cynical, and I am cynical, you know, I mean, God, I get mad at some of this shit. but I mean, if we didn't have this weird and wacky thing called democracy, then would we ever have had, an independent country in 1931? Would we have ever had the Bill of Rights, the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms? Would we have ever had standardized, socialized healthcare, or a national pension plan, or not a war in Iraq, or insert whatever cause is close to your heart? You know, it all comes back to one thing, and just pay your taxes and be happy that you live here, and don't bitch about stupid shit like that, because money is not the be all and end all for happiness, and that's a whole nother thing. But trust that in general these people that you elect are in it for the right reasons, and trust that they're going to try and do the best that they possibly can, and be engaged, and we'll be okay. So peace, everybody. There's my happy moment for you all.
Powerful Graham Gerein. He's got his legs crossed right now. He's looking rather stoic. Graham, thank you very much. It was a pleasure. A pleasure as fun. Always. You managed. I just want to commend you. You managed to contain yourself. There was no what Graham loves to do is when he gets really engaged is he raises both of his hands in the air, like very very Bernie Sanders like, and he just to really get a point across.
Damn it, yeah.
But it was great.
Good. All right.
Thank you very much. Been
Cheers.
a pleasure.
Yep.
Ciao.
Absolutely.